You're a loser, you're a coward, you're a nobody, you're an animal.
This is the case of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, whose 19-year reign of terror gripped the Seattle area in a paralyzing fear. He preyed on vulnerable women, leaving a trail of bodies that stretched along the Green River and beyond. But who was this seemingly ordinary man, capable of such extraordinary evil? And how did he evade capture for so long? Stay tuned as we delve into the dark heart of a killer whose crimes shocked a nation and forever changed the landscape of forensic investigation.
I don't wish for him to die. I wish for him to have a long, suffering, cruel death.
And you don't have a chance out here. How do you know who you're getting in with? And usually they would just shrug and walk away.
On July 15, 1982, the first known victims of the Green River Killer were discovered in the Green River near Seattle, Washington. A man on a boat noticed what he thought was a mannequin floating beneath the water. As he moved closer, he realized the horrifying truth. It was the lifeless body of a woman. Nearby, another corpse was found, and as investigators combed the area, they stumbled upon a third victim lying on the riverbank. The gruesome discovery would mark the beginning of one of the most prolonged and chilling serial murder investigations in American history.
Was able to conceptualize crimes and carry them out very efficiently, namely because of the fact that they had very little feeling for another human being. They looked at a victim as an object for their excitement. Basically, you're talking about a sexual psychopath.
The victims were soon identified as 16-year-old Opal Mills, 17-year-old Cynthia Jean Hines, and 31-year-old Marcia Chapman. Each woman had been picked up from Seattle's infamous Highway 99, also known as the Strip, an area notorious for prostitution.
I don't think I had any words that I could say. It was like, oh my God, somebody killed her. It was really sad.
We did not know this was only the beginning of a reign of terror, and we wouldn't know who was doing this for a very long time.
Authorities suspected they were dealing with an organized serial killer, someone methodical, efficient, and devoid of human empathy. The FBI categorized him as an organized offender, a predator who carefully planned his crimes and viewed his victims as mere objects for his gratification. What investigators did not yet know was that this was only the beginning of a 19-year reign of terror that would claim the lives of at least 49 women. By the end of 1982, at least 15 women were missing or dead, all with ties to the Strip.
The much-loved daughter of a Catholic family in Bellevue, a very rich suburb of Seattle. She skipped school a lot. She joined up with a boyfriend named Ray, and they were living in a cheap motel on Highway 99. She left. I think she was still possibly turning a few tricks, and she didn't come back. Her family was so upset because she was 8.5 months pregnant.
To every serial killer, human beings are objects. There's no emotional connection. There's nothing there.
Among them was 18-year-old Mary Bridget Meehan, who vanished on September 15th. She was 8.5 months pregnant when she disappeared. Her body later found buried near Highway 99. Within weeks, 15-year-old Deborah Lorraine Estes and 16-year-old Linda Jane Rule vanished, highlighting the predator's relentless pursuit of vulnerable women. The victims, predominantly young and troubled, were easy prey for the killer lurking along Seattle's Highway 99, the Strip. Law enforcement's efforts were hampered by the killer's elusiveness, leading to community speculation that he might be a police officer. One near miss occurred in April 1983, when Marie Malver's boyfriend followed her into Gary Ridgway's pickup truck. Despite locating the truck and Ridgway's home, police lacked evidence to detain him, allowing the prolific serial killer to slip through their grasp. By June 1983, the number of missing women had surged to 26, indicating the killer's refined methods and increased efficiency. The dumping grounds, scattered across rivers, forests, and highways, compounded the investigation's challenges. The discovery of Linda Jane Rule and Mary Meehan's remains, along with numerous others, revealed the killer's callous disposal of his victims, often hidden under bushes or in shallow graves. Then, in 1985, the killings abruptly ceased, puzzling investigators. Serial killers rarely stop unless incarcerated or dead. In reality, Gary Ridgway had simply shifted his focus. He began a relationship with Judith, a divorced mother whom he married in 1988. For 13 years, he maintained the facade of a loving husband, while authorities continued their fruitless search. Technological advancements in DNA analysis in 2001 revitalized the cold case. Semen found on Marcia Chapman matched Gary Ridgway's DNA, leading to his arrest. Ridgway remained eerily calm during his apprehension, revealing no indication of the horrors he had committed. Ridgway's background offered insights into his disturbing behavior. Born in 1949, he had a troubled childhood, marked by a sexually provocative mother and a father who frequently ranted about prostitutes. He exhibited early signs of violence, stabbing a 6-year-old boy as a teenager. His adult life was characterized by failed marriages and an addiction to prostitutes. Upon his arrest, Ridgway confessed to killing at least 49 women, though authorities suspect the true number is higher. He detailed his methods, including targeting vulnerable women, strangling them, and engaging in necrophilia. To mislead investigators, he often moved the bodies. In 2003, facing the death penalty, Ridgway offered to confess to all his crimes in exchange for a life sentence. This deal was accepted, providing closure for the victims' families. Ridgway described his victims as mere objects, revealing a chilling detachment. He recounted his methods of abduction and murder, often using his pickup truck to lure victims. His descriptions were devoid of emotion, focusing on the act of killing.
All the women kind of sat back and looked at her. It was strange because she would wear a big bouffant hairdo and lots of makeup, short skirts, which were not really the style in those days, especially for a mom. She just always seemed like she was trying to be very glamorous and not like our moms at all.
I always remember her wearing kind of the
really
tight shorts and low cut tops and longer hair. She was very attractive lady.
Ridgway's ability to blend into society as a meek and mild, safe person allowed him to evade capture for so long. His marriage to Judith further masked his dark side. However, his confessions revealed a man driven by an uncontrollable urge to kill, fueled by rage and a deep-seated hatred of women. His actions left a lasting impact on the community and forever changed forensic investigation.
He talked about having some sexual feelings towards her. He described in some detail watching her when she was in a bathing suit and looking at her and thinking that she dressed pretty provocatively.
This overly sexualized person washing her son's genitals, and you realize that most teenage boys are having an awful time with dealing with their own emerging sexuality, has to have had an impact on some way.
He was sentenced to 48 consecutive life terms. Before being led away, he faced the victims' families, who expressed their pain and anger. One father offered forgiveness, while others conveyed the lasting impact of Ridgway's actions. The narrative then shifts to another serial killer, Donald Pee Wee Gaskins, known as the meanest man in America. Gaskins, responsible for numerous murders, including one committed while on death row, was a brutal and relentless killer.
When you're subject to someone without a conscience, who has no regrets and no remorse and no real concern, they can pass them.
His childhood was marked by abuse and instability, shaping his violent tendencies. He claimed to have an uncontrollable urge to kill, comparing it to an addiction. The introduction of Gaskins suggests a continuation of exploring the depths of human depravity and the factors that contribute to the creation of serial killers.
Up to this point, Gary had been maintaining that they had the wrong person, that he had had sex with many prostitutes, he hadn't killed any, and that was essentially going to be the defense. Myself and another attorney were in the meeting room waiting for Mr. Ridgway. I don't recall what we were talking about, but we both had smiles on our faces when he walked in. And he said, "Oh, you won't be smiling when we're done. I've been lying to you all. I've been manipulating everyone for all these years. I killed them all."
The disappearance of 13-year-old Kim Gins, a student of Mary Ann Dunham, unveiled the dark presence of Donald Pee Wee Gaskins.
These sorts of unhealthy relationships with a maternal figure.
People that I've encountered that I've prosecuted for murder, I think that their circumstances have driven them to do what they have done in the majority of cases that I have handled, I would say. I did not see that in Ridgway. I truly believed that he was born that way, hardwired that way, whatever you want to say.
The Green River Killer was definitely born to kill. He was an individual who has this changed gene and culminated in a tremendous number and intensity of homicides.
His brain is definitely wired differently. He's a psychopath. That has to be a brain miswiring from the beginning.
I don't know about the nature piece. I think at some point it's a decision. And I think we all have some propensities for violence, but you can decide, you can control it. And he decided how he wanted to control it.
Kim, a lonely girl grieving her mother's death, had written about Gaskins' common-law wife, Donna, in a school assignment, linking her to the notorious local figure. Gaskins, known for his menacing aura and hearse bearing the ominous sign, "I hate dead bodies," was a figure of fear in the community.
In the end, Marcia got her justice because it was DNA found on her that they could match with Gary Ridgway. And Marcia got her day.
That was a good day. It was a good day.
His daughter, Shirley, recalled Kim's disappearance, with Gaskins dismissing it as a runaway. This wasn't an isolated incident. Shirley's cousin, Janice Kirby, had also vanished years prior. Detectives investigating Kim's disappearance turned their focus to Gaskins. An associate, Walter Neely, led them to a burial site where they discovered 6 bodies. The scene was gruesome, a stark revelation of Gaskins's brutality. The victims included Dennis Bellamy and Johnny Knight, involved in an auto theft ring with Gaskins, whom he led to a remote location and shot. Other victims were people Gaskins felt had wronged him.
If you had a business dispute, you'd sue him. He would kill him.
Right over here is where he drowned Doreen, and then he hit the baby in the back of the head with a hatchet after he had raped her. The total amount is 105 people.
Gaskins was arrested and, in a deal, revealed more bodies, including Doreen Dempsey and her 2-year-old daughter, Robin, whom he had brutally murdered. He also revealed the locations of Kim Gins's and Janice Kirby's bodies.
Even on death row.
When he plugs that son of a bitch up, it'll blow him on into hell.
It was just kind of astonishing that all that was able to happen in the penitentiary.
My daddy, he called himself a vampire. He would have to see blood.
Kim was in a class of 5th graders, most of whom were 10 or 11 years old, but she was 13, as I recall. She was quiet, petite. Her mother had died, I think, the previous spring. And Kim wrote about someone who was named Donna Gaskins.
Gaskins claimed to have murdered 80 to 90 people. Donald Pee Wee Gaskins was a serial killer whose violence extended even into prison. In 1982, while serving a life sentence, he orchestrated the murder of fellow inmate Rudolph Tyner, demonstrating his relentless capacity for violence. Gaskins, who claimed over 90 victims, was linked to 13 deaths in the 1970s.
Pee Wee has always been known as a notorious person in our area. I think you would have to say he came over as different, because how many people do you know that drive a hearse for their vehicle?
It was a long black hearse, just, like they used to, drive a long time ago. And on the very back, he had a little sign that says, "I haul dead bodies." Everybody joked about it, everybody just, thought it was funny.
He always told people that he hauled bodies in it, but people didn't pay much attention to him. But while they didn't pay attention to him, they were still scared of him in the lower end of the county. Everybody, if you talked about Pee Wee, they sort of would run and hide because they were scared of him. He had that kind of reputation.
His life was marked by extreme violence and a lack of empathy. Born in 1933, his childhood was unstable, filled with abuse and neglect. Shirley described him as a bad boy from a young age, often subjected to harsh discipline.
Her mom had died, and she got to be friends with Daddy because Daddy was living in Charleston. She was a sweet little girl. We had just come back from the park, and my mother-in-law lived next door, and the children was going to go over there to get something to eat. So I said, well, go on over there, and I'll be there in a minute. And when I went over there, I said, where's Kim? Nobody had seen Kim. And she just walked out the door and disappeared. And Daddy said, well, don't worry about it. She probably run away.
Gaskins, a small man, compensated for his stature with aggression, dropping out of school at 11 and forming the Trouble Trio, a gang involved in burglaries, assaults, and robberies.
Janice and I mean, when we were little, we did everything together. She was a sweet girl, very smart girl, very good in school. I mean, and she was just, all-American country girl. When she first disappeared, everybody said that, she'd run away from home. We were all out looking for her, searching for her. Everybody was calling everybody that they knew to, try to find her. But, after 6-7 months, we knew something wasn't right.
His criminal activities escalated to sexual assault and attempted murder. At 13, he attacked a young girl with an axe, leaving her for dead.
Some of our field agents were working on rumors that had been surfacing, working along with detectives from Charleston in an attempt to find Kim Gaskins.
We started looking for the Gaskins girl, and of course we did not have Pee Wee at the time, but we did have an individual who was running with Pee Wee at the time. We did pick Walter Neely up, and after a lot of talking and everything, Walter finally took the investigators out and showed them where he had helped Pee Wee bury someone. They knew somebody was buried there. We didn't have any idea what we were going to find until we started digging.
We took probably, 10 or 12, 15 deputies and sled agents, and we just lined up and started walking slowly into the woods. Sometime during that process, in moving through the bushes, the undergrowth, somebody discovered that there were some bushes that had been put there that weren't growing there. We had metal probes that were maybe 3 feet long with a T-handle on top, a piece of rebar with a point on it, that you could determine soil consistency. You probe along, and then it goes down.
They probed around enough to where they could tell that there was someone buried there. So we sealed the area off and started digging. It turned up that we found 6 bodies buried there. Yeah, it was a pretty gruesome scene. I guess I was overwhelmed because, you know, I had been in law enforcement for some 12 and a half years prior to this, and I'd never seen anything of that magnitude.
Sent to reform school, Gaskins claimed to have been gang raped and sought protection from a dominant inmate. Upon release, his criminal activities resumed, including arson and assault. He was sent to the state penitentiary, where he established himself as a power man by killing another inmate. Over the next 2 decades, Gaskins was in and out of prison, frequently escaping and recaptured. He lived a transient life, hiding in the woods and forming unstable relationships with multiple women.
I was 6 months pregnant at the time with my last child. And we were, you know, when the cops came up there, and, you know, they were telling me, oh, you know, that they were looking for my daddy for murder and stuff like that. I mean, I went in shock. I went into labor. My baby was born. I wasn't even 7 months pregnant. She didn't weigh, but she weighed 2 pounds and something.
All of a sudden, we found ourselves in the national limelight.
His violence was unrestrained, even within the confines of maximum security, highlighting a man driven by an insatiable urge to kill. By the 1970s, disappearances began to be linked to him. Shirley recalled people disappearing after visiting their home. In 1982, Gaskins planned Tyner's murder from his prison cell. He befriended Tyner, then used his position as a maintenance worker to create a makeshift explosive device, disguised as an intercom system. He detonated the device, killing Tyner. Gaskins displayed sadistic tendencies, describing torturing his victims and disposing of their bodies in marsh areas. He claimed to experience an uncontrollable urge to kill, comparing it to an addiction. His life was a pattern of escalating violence, beginning with petty crime and culminating in multiple murders. Experts debated whether Gaskins was born to kill or shaped by his environment. His childhood abuse and possible brain damage were considered factors, but his actions were ultimately attributed to a learned pattern of violence and a complete lack of empathy. Despite the debate, Gaskins was executed, leaving behind a legacy of brutality and unanswered questions about the true extent of his crimes. By the end of the 70s, Gaskins was linked to 13 murders and was serving a life sentence in maximum security. In 1982, Gaskins planned the murder of Rudolph Tyner, a fellow inmate on death row. Tony Simo, the son of Tyner's victims, hired Gaskins to carry out the murder. Tony was friends with someone in prison. They got Daddy and Tony together. Gaskins befriended Tyner, smuggling him food and marijuana. He attempted to poison Tyner, but it didn't work. Gaskins then devised an elaborate plan. As a maintenance worker, he had access to tools. He created an intercom system between their cells, using a modified cup and explosives. He attached the blasting cap, nestled it in the C4. Explosive was able to feed it through the wall, through the vent into Tyner and, in, under the guise of it being an intercom-type system. Gaskins told Tyner to hold the cup to his ear, then plugged the other end into an electrical socket. Tyner was killed by the explosion. He blowed him up. Pieces of him were blown all over the prison. Fingers went everywhere. Gaskins was convicted of Tyner's murder and sentenced to death. The question remained, was he a born killer? A report from his childhood suggested possible brain damage from drinking kerosene. However, experts noted that brain trauma was not a consistent factor in serial killers. Gaskin is an individual who's had an antisocial life since he was a child. He began with some sort of a small gang that did all sorts of antisocial and criminal sorts of things, and he's very, very comfortable not only with committing crime, but with killing it means absolutely nothing to him. Gaskins was executed, claiming to be America's most prolific serial killer. However, the claims of 80 to 90 additional victims were never substantiated. While some believed him, others doubted the veracity of his claims. The coastal killings, I personally don't believe any of that's true. We've never had any physical evidence or rumor or conjecture from anybody. Shirley, despite testifying against her father, maintained her love for him. That's all for this video. We hope you have found this video informative and interesting. What are your thoughts about this case? Let us know in the comments section. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon for more interesting videos like this. Thank you for watching our video.